Welcome to Progressive Mindset Podcast. My name is Natalie Potts, Business Development Coach and Mentor, and each week I'll be bringing you an inspiring personal message to help you unlock creating and living life full of energy, action, impact and happiness. And today I'm delighted to welcome on Shelley, a women's mindset and success coach. Shelley shares what imposter syndrome is and ways we can deal with it, knowing that perfection doesn't exist and actually maybe we're not meant to be perfect. So as always, over to Shelley to introduce herself.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. So who am I? I am Shelley Bosworth of Shelley Bosworth Coaching. I like to keep things nice and simple. So let me just give you the whistle-stop tour of my background and how I got here. So like you, corporate world, I've got a 25-year corporate background. Grew up in the world of retail and hospitality, fairly standard societal bringing up. Yeah, life, work hard at school, do your exams, go out, get a decent job, good benefits package. And that's what I did. And I worked really, really hard for all of those years and climbed the corporate ladder. And I was quite high up that ladder. I was fairly senior in hospitality. So I had a UK-wide role with kind of 2,500 employees kind of indirectly reporting into me and a direct team of about 25 in head office. And then I turned 40. So basically, I met my husband. I'm married. I met my husband relatively late in life, met him before 40, but I turned 40. And in short, I had a health scare and we experienced some personal loss. I don't say this as a woe is me. These were the triggers for me. So I'd hit the 40 mark, which for every woman, we all know we have some questions we start asking. I then had the health scare literally 3 months after my 40th birthday. And in the midst of that, my father-in-law had been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's a couple of years earlier, and he deteriorated quite swiftly and passed away, sadly. And within a year of losing my father-in-law, we also lost my mother-in-law to cancer. So the story is that actually I had several quite big triggers in my life that got me questioning things. Now, I was really, really fortunate. I don't use the word lucky, and I'll explain why if you want. But I was really fortunate in my corporate world. I had huge amounts of development, and I'd had access to coaching. And in my role as a leader, I was a coach of people. And many said I was a very good coach. I would argue that now I know what coaching is really about. I probably wasn't as good as I thought. But in short, I started asking questions. I was asking questions of the life I was leading. So I was working away 3 to 4 nights a week. I was working 80 to 90 hours a week, and I loved my job. So I was not miserable, but I realized I wasn't fulfilled, and I didn't feel like I was fulfilling my potential. So I announced, and I'd always kind of wondered about being a coach and what would that look like. And off I went to do a bit of research, because that's what I do. And I found the Coaching Academy, and Natalie, I know that's the academy that you trained with as well. Found the Coaching Academy, went along, found out more, and I knew within 2 hours of finding out more that this was what I was meant to do. And so jumped in and trained with the Coaching Academy for just under 18 months, qualified in the summer of 2019, set up my private practice with the intention of slowly running that alongside my corporate life and building my plan for the future. And I left corporate world at the end of 2019. So within 6 months, I'd made the leap. We'd set the provisions in the background. I was ready for a new year, a new decade. 2020 was going to be the one. I think we all know what happened in 2020, but here I am in 2021, still here, loving every single minute. I've learned huge amounts. But yeah, in short, that's how I got to here. So what do I do now? Well, I am, like yourself, a qualified personal performance life coach. What on earth is that? So I work with women who want to make a change in their life, however big or small, but are basically telling themselves they can't, even if they're not conscious that they're telling themselves they can't. I'm all about empowering women to realize that you can put yourself back on the list. I work with lots of women who've had triggers, not necessarily like mine, and not necessarily to leave their jobs.
Yeah.
But what's happened is something has triggered them to say, you know what, actually I want something else, and I'm ready to do something about it. I am 25 years of corporate will do this to you, incredibly straight talking. So I'm all about action driving.
Yeah.
But the controversial part of that is I do huge amounts of work around mindset And that's been the game changer for me, understanding the power of our minds.
Yeah.
So there's the whistle stop tour of how I got here and what I do.
Well, look, an amazing introduction, and it's a pleasure to have you on. And I think it's really interesting there's loads in there that resonates and kind of I can connect with. I guess it's interesting how we've even got to hear ourselves and the relationships that you can build with people. And I say this a lot, that business is about relationships and people work for people, whether that's a corporate spiel, whatever, it still resonates in whether you own your own business and how you show up in your own business. And similar to the podcast I've just released today is about leadership. You have to be a leader, and those qualities and the skill set that you have are very, very different. And you have to sometimes go and learn. Well, you do have to learn them. I think there's elements that we're kind of maybe in our DNA as such, but yeah, you can go and learn them. And I think the part around getting to your 40s, for me, it was my 30s, and I kind of am 34 soon, and I kind of. I think any age, actually, we're pleased that we've hit that. And then we kind of think, oh, why wasn't it a little bit earlier? However, we wouldn't be here without the experience either.
100%. I actually, on my wedding day, I can't remember the quote now because it's only just come to mind, but I basically said something along the lines of every step I've taken and every regret I do or don't have, every mistake I've made has got me to here. And I wouldn't change any of that. Whilst I wish is probably the wrong word. I'd love to have known back then what I know now. Yeah. And by back then, I'm not even sure where I mean. But actually, the 25 years that I did have in corporate world have made me the person I am now and the coach that I am now. Yeah. And you talk about that leadership piece. And, we talk in small business world, don't we, about know, like, and trust. Yeah. We certainly talk about that in the coaching world. It's the same as a leader. Actually, your team needs to feel that they know you, like you, and trust you to really jump on board with you and move on the journey that you're taking with them. And that's exactly the same. So I guess the piece that really works for me is having had, and I had a great career and I had worked for some brilliant businesses and I had some brilliant leaders myself who invested in me. And actually, I kind of bring that as well as my coaching into what I now do. Yeah. And I work with a lot of small business owners for that reason, because actually they don't have that background. So they've got an immense amount of passion and a desire to create something, but actually what they haven't got is the business acumen, perhaps. And they certainly haven't had the investment that I've been fortunate enough to have over the years. So kind of bringing that all in. And, we know that corporate world can be a little bit straight talking. Bringing that all together is kind of how I work with people to move them forward.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because I guess how we've connected as well is through the academy, and then strangely seeing each other at an event, but also through a personal connection as well through the corporate world. So that it shows as well that I always say this, that it is small worlds and your connection, and they say your network is your network, but it's so true if you do it well. And if you go into it with an attitude, and I've always been told I network well and I love networking, but it has to be like this, both ways. It's not, oh, by the way, Shelley, jump on my podcast and that's all I'm going to take is, me. It absolutely works both ways in all networking that you do, because again, it's relationships and it's how people choose to see it. And I think the skill set of and you, like we said, that's what helps us to where we are now.
100%. And I also think that that's become even more profound in the last year. Yeah. So that connection, that networking, call it what you will, they're all just labels, but and actually how small the world is. This year has shown us just how small the world is and how small we can make it and leverage it to be. But this year more than ever, that connection piece has been so important.
I agree. And I think this is what's really interesting about, and this is what kind of made me think a few weeks ago about, asking you to join, was because you are talking a lot about imposter syndrome. And I guess where I'm super confident, I just nothing phases me. I deliberately have to go out of my comfort zone to feel the butterfly feelings, to feel a bit nervous, because I think that's healthy to have those feelings. I always remember mum saying before, I was like, oh, I'm never nervous. She was like, yeah, but you should be. So I think that it's a good thing to be that. And so I'm aware that just because I'm confident, probably 90% of people aren't. And I can't really maybe empathise almost with people that have imposter syndrome. So I might just think, we'll get over it. just go for it. You know, if you don't fail, you don't learn. However, you can't keep saying no so brash in that way. You have to understand, and again, that empathy, understand where people are coming from with that, because I don't think I can just build a business, although I say action and impact and directness. Yes, go with that, but be mindful of others as well. And I need to probably condition myself just naturally as a person.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I know you and I have spoken about this element before. And so I think there's a fine line and a difference between confidence and courage. So my belief, and it's my belief, and of course, you know, from what we do, you know, we've all got our own beliefs. My belief is that no one is 100% confident 100% of the time, because we've all, and you just said it yourself, I have to push myself out of my comfort zone to not be confident, which in turn is saying, well, I'm not confident all the time, but I know you're a really confident person, and I'm generally the same. People think I'm a really confident person. I am. In my arena, I am confident in areas I'm comfortable and confident in. But actually, there's a piece around having the courage to push yourself out of that confidence zone and that comfort zone. And that's where I think that fine line between confidence and courage comes. And we use the word confidence for so much. We label ourselves confident or not confident. There's no in between. And actually, I think there's a huge in between. Because some days I am super confident, and sometimes I have so many confidence issues, and I'm really comfortable saying that out loud, even as a coach who's helping people with their confidence. So, but on those really non-confident, I don't know what the right English is, on those not so confident days, I have to find the courage to push myself to do the things that I'm not feeling confident about. And that would be kind of my take on confidence instead.
Yeah, no, I love that. Look at it, and just kind of touching on courage as well, because I think that's really interesting. And again, I think there's lots of inspirational women, and you know, they can be mentors. People like Michelle Obama talks a lot around courage. And it's interesting, like you say, that actually how we show up every day may not. And I think that it's okay to not be that as well, and what that means and how you go about that, and overcome that obstacle in itself.
And that's one of the things. So I know, you know, I've been talking a lot about imposter syndrome recently, imposter syndrome, limiting beliefs, confidence, because we are seeing, I'm hearing, I'm seeing, I'm feeling it, an all-time high of people's levels of imposter syndrome, let's call it, heightened. And I've been really clear. I'm not trying to label people. What I'm actually trying to do is normalize it. And say it's okay to have those feelings, because one of my favorite sayings is, and I grew up with that saying, that the first step is admitting the problem. We used to say as a joke, but actually the first step is acknowledging that something's going on for you. The second step is deciding you want to do something about it. And so when I talk about things like imposter syndrome and limiting beliefs and the mindset stuff, it's not because I'm saying, hey, you're weird and you've got something wrong. I'm not calling this a condition. I hate the word syndrome, if I'm honest. What I'm saying is, let's normalize this and be okay with how you're feeling about a situation. So I've been talking a lot about, you know, imposter syndrome shows up in so many different ways for so many different people in so many different situations. It's like the confidence piece. You don't have imposter syndrome all the time, every day, in everything you do. You have it at points in scenarios you find yourself in. And actually, we've just, I think we're just in a bit of a danger zone at the moment, that we're labeling an awful lot and putting lots of pressure on those labels as well.
I agree. How do you think, so often we say, like, you know, both of us joined the coaching academy and we both absolutely agree that the first 2 days were like, yeah, this is for us. And I think, I mean, I researched quite a few different cases before I committed, and I had to, like you probably, I'm assuming though, we didn't do as coaches, but that you got that feeling of this feels right for me with the academy, because a lot of people say that.
Yeah, so gosh, I did a load of research, and to the point of overwhelm. I was like, and then had moments of, well, what if I'm wrong? What if the gut feel? And I did go very much on gut feel, and I'm quite spontaneous. So when I decide I want to do something, it doesn't mean I'll just go for it, you know, and cut corners. But what I'll do is I'll research. I'll really work it through, but I'm going to do it. I'm like a dog with a bone when I've decided. So ultimately, I'd done the research, went for the 2 days, and at the end of day one, I remember saying to my husband, this is going to happen. I'm going to do this. I don't even know where it's going yet, but I just know I'm meant to do this. And for me, it was so many things on that day. I met some great people, connection, really important, people I resonated with, the speakers, the material we covered, it just made sense to me. And also, and again, I realised how fortunate I'd been in my corporate life, because it wasn't all new for me. You know, there were people in that room where this was brand new information.
Yeah.
And actually I came out there going, you know, it's not all new for me. I've been party to some of this. I've learned some of this stuff already. So I can really enhance my skills, really hone that, and really make a difference. I guess it just felt right. I don't know if that's a great answer or not, actually.
I guess
no one ever asked me.
one kind of drawing on there is that you, like the focus of imposter syndrome this month, has that found you, or is that something you thought that that's impacted me, therefore I want to help others?
Right. That's a really good question, actually. So I guess I found myself, I don't necessarily have a niche, so to speak, but I have a real interest in imposter syndrome, limiting beliefs, the power of the mind. And the reason that I have such an interest is because it has really resonated for me. So I think that limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome are intrinsically linked. Okay, they tend to kind of feed one another. And I had a huge light bulb moment around limiting beliefs. And realizing that there were some limiting beliefs that have come all the way from my childhood. And I didn't have a crappy childhood. I had a fairly standard life. It wasn't difficult. It wasn't particularly easy. We didn't have lots of money. We weren't poor, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I true story, I can remember stopping in the middle of the street. I was walking down the street with my husband, and stopping and saying out loud, oh my God, I've just realized what's been feeding one of the beliefs I have. And it was from my childhood. And that was a massive, game-changing light bulb moment for me.
Yeah.
Now, we obviously did loads of work on limiting beliefs through our coaching program. And this is where that kind of uncovered my stuff. And then learning how I could work that through, start to deal with that, put tactics in place. Because it was so game-changing for me, I wanted to share that with others. Now, I'm really clear. I use the tag straight talking. I don't do woo. Okay, I have no issue with anyone that has, that talks about the universe and manifestation. I'm woo curious, if that's even a thing. But I'm also about backing it up with information and facts. So I research a lot. So once I'd had those light bulb moments for me, actually it kind of drove me on to go and research more and learn about limiting beliefs, learn about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, learn about imposter syndrome, understand how it all ties in together, and then apply that and share that. Sound a bit preachy, don't I? But I'm literally like, why did no one tell me this stuff? That's the stuff I wish I'd become a coach at 20 years of age. Why did no one help me understand that actually I've got this lifetime of conditioning that's subconsciously creating both obstacles, but also spurring me on. So, limiting beliefs, yes, they can limit you, but I wouldn't be where I am now in anything if it weren't for a load of other stuff that's kind of, I've almost rebelled against some of my limiting beliefs too. Does that answer the question? Because I get a bit
interesting. And when you talk about kind of those obstacles, and I guess particularly females, it's more natural. I don't want to kind of divert that men don't go through that as well, but there is that, I know there's that research that you get a job spec description and a guy will go, yeah, I can do that. And a woman will go, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that.
Can't apply unless I can do 100% of it. Guy will say, well, I can do 80% of it, I'll learn the rest. Yeah.
How do you help women overcome imposter syndrome?
So the starting point, as I said, is acknowledging that there's something going on there. So what I really do is help them delve into what's really going on in this mind of yours. What are you really saying to yourself?
Yeah.
And then I listen. What I do is I listen. And what I do with all of my clients is, and I won't swear, but I call them on the BS.
Yeah.
So we tell ourselves loads of crap all the time, don't we? And as a coach, what we get to do is play back. Well, what you just said was, and that's what I do, because women, we are wonderful at being martyrs. We think we've got to be everything for everyone. I'm not a mum, I'm not a parent, and hats off to all the parents in the land, by the way. But I am a wife, I am a sister, I am a daughter, I'm an aunt, I'm a friend, I'm a colleague, and just like everyone, I put huge amounts of pressure on myself to be brilliant at all those things. We do. I don't know all the ins and outs of why, but women do that. We put so much pressure on ourselves, and then we beat ourselves up because, of course, we can't actually be brilliant at all of those things all of the time, and that feeds the imposter syndrome. I'm really generalizing because actually I work with some men, and men do experience imposter syndrome. But of course, they've also been conditioned to not talk about it because they're the man and they're not supposed to admit. That's an imposter syndrome in itself. You're not really supposed to admit that you're feeling this way. So I think that there's a bit where we're happier to talk about it as women. We're just not sure what to do with it. And what I do is say, well, okay, I'm calling you on that. You don't get to say it out loud and then just leave it hanging. We're going to do something about it now. And then just really work on breaking it down. There's power in understanding where it comes from, but it's not necessary because you can spend too long hung up on why and where it came from. What's more important is, do you want to do something about it? And this is where I get, I talk about woo curious, if you like. You can retrain your brain. We're carrying years of subconscious beliefs. You can't undo that overnight. So you have to learn to retrain your brain, and you have to learn to help your brain, which is built to protect us and is always looking for evidence to support what we're thinking. That's what our brain does. So if we are thinking we can't do something, then our brain will go, you're right, let me show you all the evidence that you can't do something. So we have to help the brain see evidence that actually we can. So we have to introduce ourselves and our thought patterns to the possibility that what we're telling ourselves is absolute BS. That's what I do over the course of time with my clients.
I guess what I love about that is that, so I tend to just, I focus on working with business coaches, but what I love about what you're doing is identifying something that is absolutely the undercurrent and foundation of what everybody's feeling anyway. It's a bit like, I'm very much into personality profiling, personal development. And I steered away from it a bit in terms of coaching, but I absolutely love it for myself, and I will keep them parallel all the time, my development and that. And I've always got told I'm really good at that, but it's because I love it. I love to learn more about myself and learn what I'm great at, what I'm not so great at, and improve it. So things like where we've done DISC, I've done MBTI, I've done Facet 5, I've done Strengths 5, I've done so many different personality profiling things. But I love it. And I think people see that as a woo, because they think that's the hardest part, is starting to look at our inside and understand. They're like, no, and it's that defense, don't want to do it.
Well, it's much easier to say it's everyone else and it's all the external factors.
And I guess what I'm calling on there is that what you're doing is absolutely always needed. It's just not almost, and especially very corporate mindset, it's not as tangible, is it? Because there isn't I'll get, I can show it for a result, that's what I've done, push it away, look, I'm really good, I'm really good. Or actually, it's going to be a long bloody journey going through that part of admit to yourself, first of all, let's then break it down and move forward, and that takes time. And I've looked into NLP and everything as well, and I've done different therapy with things, but that whole rewiring and creating different patterns on how we were is very intense and long for some people.
It is, and you've got to want to do it.
I agree.
Which was one of the things, I think, when I came out of corporate and started the coaching business, everybody assumed, quite rightly, well, I would coach corporate people. I would absolutely tap into my corporate connections. And, I do coach some corporate people, but I was one of the few, I had coaching through the workplace, and I embraced it. I was like, this is brilliant, because I, like you, I'm so interested. I remember, you just reeled them off, didn't you? We've clearly both done the same ones: DISC, MBTI, Insights, Strength Finders, you name it, I've done it. They all kind of tell me the same stuff as well, because you're wired the way you're wired. That self-awareness helps you to kind of dial up and dial down stuff. But I knew so many people in corporate world who were coached but didn't really want to be. They were being offered an opportunity that they weren't really engaged in. And I didn't want to go down that route. And I think what I love so much about what I do now, and this is where, of course, as I said, I do work with quite a lot of small business owners, because they've never had any of that. So for them, this is huge light bulb stuff. But I do work with some corporate contacts. I don't work with corporate businesses, but it's people that want to be, because of course what we both know is you can't coach someone that doesn't want to be coached. And I'm so passionate about coaching in its purest form. I mean, I'm sure you would agree. There's lots of people out there calling themselves coaches, and I have huge respect for everybody out there doing what they do. But what I do is coach in its purest form. I don't give advice. I ask, and I help people find their answers. And that's what I meant when I said I wasn't as good a coach as I thought when I was in corporate world.
Yeah, and I think I heard someone say it today to me, actually, I'm a good coach. And I was like, oh, I guess, and I wouldn't ever throw it back and say, well, actually not. But when you learn in its purest form as well, and I am very, very direct when people say, well, what do you think? And it's like, well, what do you think I think? So I'll always throw a question back. One of my friends goes, "Oh, you're doing it again." And I said, I will.
I have a husband that says that.
I don't want to ever come away from that, because I think it's easier not to do it in some ways, because a lot of people, and I do mentor in parts, but I make it really clear when someone says something like that, I say, look, I can do, as long as I feel I'm an expert in that positioning, I'll say I can give my mentoring advice hat on. However, I need to make it really clear we are going out of coaching then, because coaching is about you and you have the answers, not me telling you that.
And Natalie, I do the same. I train, I mentor on occasion. I'm really clear if I'm mentoring, not coaching. But what I always come back to is the power is in you realizing you've got your answers and actually taking accountability and responsibility. And do you know what? Pride in finding your own answers. And that's the bit where I think back to my leadership roles in corporate, and I was a good coach, but I wasn't as good as I am now. And that sounds quite arrogant, doesn't it? But what I mean is there were times, of course there were, when I was coaching, but what I was really doing was trying to get them to what I wanted them to do. I was just doing it in really clever ways with open questions, because that's what we were probably taught. But also there are times when, in business, you may have to adapt that style. But that's not what I do now for people that are investing in themselves and wanting to, move forwards in whatever they do.
And do you know, it's really interesting you say that, and especially working with lots of people recently, just having conversations about their performance, moving them forward. I almost think, and this would, like you say, sound arrogant for me saying it, but when you are coaching and you love it and you're in a good place with it and understand it, I think you become more humble. And I've noticed it in myself that, because people will say things like, they might know you're a coach and things, but they'll say things like, that's a really good question. It's not just saying it, like they genuinely mean that. And I don't sit there and go, yeah, I know. I'm like, okay. And I leave that silence to create more emphasis for them to explore that. Because again, like you say, listening earlier, we don't do it enough.
No.
And we don't, seek to understand and then be understood. Stephen Covey, we don't do that enough, or we think that we know the answers, or we have to jump in. And I just sometimes feel that it has more power just by giving someone, and I know this from my own experience when I'm coaching, that silence sometimes to the coach probably feels like 10 minutes where it's 10 seconds, but for me, I'm just thinking, oh, just give me a minute, I just want to think, I just need to think, need to think. It's that. And I always say it to my clients that this is the time, this is your time, this isn't about me, this is about you. So just be open-minded, explore things.
Well, the really interesting piece about that is, the whole imposter syndrome piece is about fearing and worrying about what everyone else is thinking, and thinking that everyone else thinks you're a fraud. The reality of life is that, and forgive me everybody if you don't like what I'm about to say, but just go with me for a second. The reality of life is that we're all, unless you're consciously trained and trying not to, we're all thinking about ourselves. So the minute you start a conversation, you tell me about something, the other person's brain goes to, oh gosh, yeah, that happened to me once. And you're desperate to jump in with all the right intent. And it's this wonderful irony of, we think everybody else is judging us, and actually 90% of the time, everyone's just thinking about themselves. And we're even thinking about ourselves when we're thinking, what are they thinking of me? That made sense as a statement. Yeah. And that's the reality of the world. And of course, what we've worked on is learning to quieten that voice, because it's not about us. And that was tough going. I don't know about it for you, but that was the biggest piece for me to overcome, because I can remember in my early days, free coaching, almost wanting to cry out, I want to help you. I wanted to fix everything. I wanted to rescue and fix. And I've got an idea. I wonder if I could tell them my idea. But of course, that's not what it's about. And actually, I talk about how empowered they feel. You know what? I get so much more out of watching others get so much more out of it too. But just the irony of all of it makes me giggle some days.
And it's even stuff like doing this. Like, this is why I probably do a podcast, is one, because it holds me to account, is the main reason. And again, it's about me. Two, because you can share and add value. And then three, because you work on your skill set and doing just that, just listening to you. And I'm thinking, I could ask her that. And then thinking, actually, which of those is most important? All I'm doing is my head's just going over and over things. And they say I can't even remember how many thoughts we think in a day. It's a crazy number.
Well, so the last study said somewhere between 60 and 70,000. That was pre-COVID.
It's just scary.
Well, I think all of those studies need to be updated because quite frankly, COVID has had, let's be honest, this pandemic has had quite a profound impact on all of us. It's like the imposter syndrome. The statistic is, studies suggest that 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their career. Well, okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to throw it out there. That number's much higher, and it ain't just about careers anymore. Let's be really honest. We've been living a virtual world for 10 months. Imposter syndrome is no longer just about the workplace. It's about life. And 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, they say we have. And I would suggest, given the technological stimulus we have, actually that number's much higher now.
God, that's staggering.
Crazy. It's crazy.
It's funny, I remember the first introduction days of the academy, they said, who has mind chatter here? And I sat there and I was like, do I have mind chatter? And I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it now. Those are the powerful awareness moments.
100%. Yeah. We are not saying that everyone's got a little bit of, psychological issue going on, but everyone's got a voice in their head.
For sure. And it's like you say, it's knowing when to and how to numb that down. And
it takes time.
Yeah, it does. It's so interesting, isn't it? And I think there's areas and subjects that we could talk about for ages and build on. And I think it's really powerful to know that you're helping people specifically on that if they want to be helped.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let me kick fire with some, like, my last 5 questions.
Go on then.
I love firing these into simple things. So, how do you measure success?
Oh, good question. Really good question, given the name of my Facebook group. I'm sorry, that wasn't meant to be quite as leading as it was. I'm going to throw it in though. So I run a free Facebook group, the Successful Ladies Escape Lounge. And actually, it is a really interesting question, because the reason that I chose that title, and I ummed and ahed, because that can alienate, because people don't feel successful. Therefore, do they feel they can be in the Successful Ladies Escape Lounge? My personal view is that success is whatever it is for you. For me, it's changed, actually. So if you'd have asked me this 5 years ago, it was absolutely about the level I was at and the job title I had, the salary that I was earning. And I've got to sound terrible. And kind of some of the material stuff that went alongside that. As I said earlier, I didn't come from a poor background, but we didn't have huge amounts of money either. So I definitely had a material driver. Now, God, it sounds really obtuse to say, I just want to be happy. But I guess it's fulfillment. I don't think happiness isn't the right word. So success for me is about feeling fulfilled in what I get to do. I have a desire to achieve financial freedom. And for me, that means mortgage free. For me, that means I'm fortunate enough, I'm currently residing in Italy in our future home. That's the big goal, but actually not quite the way we planned. So I guess for me, success is largely around financial freedom and getting to do what I love doing, not because I have to, but just because I get to. That would be true success for me. That I'm not doing it because I need the money to pay the bills, pay the mortgage. That I get to do it. That doesn't mean, everybody, that I'm going to do this for free in the future. Maybe I will one day, but it's that bit around actually just doing it because I love it. And probably working less hours like everybody else.
I think as well, like, it's finding something like your passion and getting paid to do it. And I'm very, very similar. I'm very, very driven and a monetary value as well, because, you know, not as such now, but I like nice things and I know I have to work hard for them. So I think very much on that. What would you tell your younger self?
I knew you were going to ask me this question because I've heard you ask other people. So what would do you know what I would say? Just keep going with your gut. I wouldn't call out, oh God, this is coming, don't let that happen. Because as I said earlier, everything that has happened, every step I've taken, God, I don't really have regrets. I have lots of learnings, but it's got me to where I am. So I'd probably just say to her, just believe in yourself a bit more.
Okay. Yeah. Love that. What do you want to be known for?
I just want to be known for everything that I've been describing today, in inspiring and empowering women that if I can, you can, whatever your can is.
What is one thing people can do to live a more purposeful life?
I don't really know if I should be far better prepared for this, because I know you ask these questions of your guests. I don't really have an answer for that, because it sounds like a real politician's answer. Because I think that's something that's so personal.
Yeah.
What is purposeful to you? So I think that my answer would be, do what you love, or do something you love every single day, however small that is.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's honest as well. And I respect that. Last one I've got. So the book that has had the biggest impact on you.
Right now, I know that every single one I've started with, this is quite difficult to answer, but so I have been thinking about this, and I've decided to tell you the first book I read. So I read a lot. I read every single day. I read every single morning. I'm like you. I'm obsessed with development.
Yeah.
So I read. In fact, you can't quite see. I know you can see me. The podcast can't, but there's all my books up behind me.
Yeah.
But actually, I come back to the first book I read as I started this journey, which will surprise most people, was Denise Duffield Thomas, Lucky Bitch. Okay. And now, what's really interesting is Denise Duffield Thomas, by her own admission, is incredibly woo. She's all about the universe. She's all about manifestation, and I'm not.
Yeah.
But what I loved about her story was actually where she started out, she worked her butt off because she'd made a decision. She knew she wanted more. And I think she does herself almost a disservice. I mean, I appreciate how incredibly popular Denise Duffield Thomas is. But when she talks about kind of manifestation, I actually think she does herself a disservice in terms of the reality she throws on manifestation. So what she's really clear is you can manifest whatever you want in life, but you've got to take action. You've got to take really inspired action. And that's, for me, what I loved about that book. And it was the turning point for me going, you know what? I'm going to take action. I'm going to do something differently. Because she tells the story of coming from nothing to where she is now, and she's gone even further. But I guess I enjoyed the read, and I came away from that book thinking, well, I could do that. Not what she's done, but I can do this. I can do something about it. And I've read it again several times. So I guess that's why it's not the most profound read, but your question was what had an impact on me. And I remember I can tell you now where I was when I read it. And there's one part in it where she says, go and write down what you want your ideal day to be. One day in the future, what do you want your life to be like? From the moment you open your eyes in the morning, where are you? What can you see? What can you smell? What's your view? Where are you living? Really allow yourself to think about that day. And I did. And I'm not particularly good at visualization, but I did that exercise. I wrote down what I dream of that day being, and I'm not quite there yet, but actually that's what I still hook into. That is what I'm aiming for. And so I guess that's why it's been really profound for me, because at that point I was still in corporate world and working really, really hard. In fact, I hadn't even, had I? Yes, I had. I'd found the coaching academy, but I don't think I'd even started the diploma. Yeah. So my life was very different to where it is now.
Love that. Thank you.
A bit of a long-winded answer, but there you go.
Great. It's great. Look, I really value your time and appreciate it. I've learned lots
Pleasure.
from you. I think I definitely get that directness and no BS, which works for me. And it's nice to listen to someone. When you respect people like that, you just listen and see that I'm interested, genuinely interested in a perspective that you have on things as well. Even, and this isn't coaching, it's you sharing your views and your opinions and your experience and perspective, which is grand. So where can people find you?
I am really easy to find on all platforms, Shelley Bosworth Coaching. I'm most active on Instagram if you want to come for a daily butt kick or a bit of inspiration. And I also, as I mentioned already, so I've got a free Facebook group, the Successful Ladies Escape Lounge, which clearly I'm the host, and I do a live training every Sunday evening. And it's everything that I've talked about today, just really kind of challenging the thought process and helping people believe in themselves. And even my website is Shelley Bosworth Coaching. It's so easy to find me. So
I've definitely seen you on the Facebook, and I think for anybody that's debating or not sure whether it's coaching or limiting beliefs, imposter, any of that, just jumping on and just being a part of that. And I think the biggest difference those women can make is being part of something, a community of like-minded people. You know, I really would advise people and tell them they need to do and be open to, because I think that makes a massive difference.
Yeah, I get as much from that community as they get from it. Yes, I host it. Yes, I do the live trainings. Yes, I post, but everybody else posts in there too. And actually they lift each other up. They carry each other along. They're there for each other. It's a fabulous community. I'm really proud.
That's what I love about seeing you. You know, when you're in the game properly, you understand that the followers aren't just what it says on Instagram or buying people. It is actually building relationships. And if you've made a difference to 5 people, that's 5 people that you can have changed their lives to. And that's where we talk different levels of success and happiness here, opposed to I have a real stigma against influencers anyway. I won't get on that.
That's another podcast altogether.
However, being true to yourself and true to the value and what you do, those are the types of connections and groups that you should start and get into, because they're the ones that will really help you move forward.
Agree.
So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been great.
A huge thank you to Shelley today for coming on and sharing everything about imposter syndrome and so much more also. And a huge thank you to you for listening to my podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I highly recommend you check out the previous episodes, exploring everything from business to relationships, mindset and goal setting. And today I am also super excited to share my group coaching program that is starting in April. So if you are a coach looking to transform and build your coaching business, and this sounds of interest to you, all you've got to do is share with me your biggest struggle right now. Let's see what and how I can help you. As always, go take action, make an impact, and have a great day.